There's no way that someone else is going to drive the Batmobile for the first time onto the stage, so I had to drive it, obviously. Hi, my name is Alex King. I'm a picture vehicle supervisor for Fast and Furious 10, and I'm here today for Screen Secrets for British Esquire. What we do, in essence, is we build, supply, prep cars that you see on screen. You know, from whether it's a motorway full of traffic, or your hero Aston Martins, or your Chargers. For Fast 10, the car that I keep thinking about and talking about for Fast 10 is Hans Alpha. That was we rebuilt the car completely. So we're stripping it back to a bare body. Then we had new geometry and suspension, a new engine, new gearbox, and that car was set up specifically for that sequence. A completely different drive to what it was when it first came into the workshop, but I know that the stunt drivers enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I've actually bought a shell. When I have time, I'm going to probably produce my own one for a little bit of fun, but that was the car that I think stood out for us as far as technology, engineering elements were concerned. There are many different cars that we have on screen. Now, if you've got a background car, you can have a rental. That's straightforward, it's not doing too much. When you've got a hero car, depending on the journey and the job and the role of the vehicle, I like to associate all the vehicles that we have on set. I akin them to actors. You know, you have the actor that turns up, but it's not only the actor. You have a stand-in, a stunt double, and so on. So we have exactly the same process for the vehicles. You have a hero beauty car, which is pretty much the standard car. Then you'll have a double of that beauty car that's got exterior camera mounts, so it can be used on either a low loader flatbed type vehicle to do those moving shots. Then you've got the rehearsal cars that stunts would need to rehearse some of the sequences for the chase sequence. On top of that, then you have the stunt versions, and incorporated in the stunt version is sometimes a special effect version of the stunt car. And that would mean that there could be a cannon. A cannon is a compressed cylinder that blows out the bottom of the vehicle and catapults it in, which is where you see these spectacular spins and turns. So as a department, we work really closely with stunts, obviously, and special effects to get the car ready with all the elements that are required for the sequence. Depending on the build, the bigger the build, the bigger the time, the bigger the budget. I suppose, you know, rule of thumb, if I squeeze it all into one simple answer, is you know, let's say you've got 6 to 8 weeks and anywhere from 20 to 180, 200,000 pounds. The most expensive build I've been involved was probably on Fast 9 with the huge articulated armoured truck that we built 2 of. Purely for a you know, prep material and finish, we completely rebuilt those from scratch. We started with a bare chassis and built from there. So I would say they're probably the most expensive. It's not only, as we all know, it's, you know, when my dad said, you know, you want to buy your first motorbike, it's not about buying the bike, it's having the bike, the fuel, the insurance, the crash helmet, and the servicing. Yeah, quite often the cars get involved in their decisions or likes do play a massive part in it. Obviously, I remember on Hobbs and Shaw with Jason Statham in the McLaren 720S was probably the, you know, he was very keen, very excited to get into the McLaren. So when I was on board, there was already, the partnership was already there, and then it was just you know, negotiations. And Vin has his own likes, needs. Obviously he has a lot to say, and you know, if what he says, what he needs, what he wants, he gets. I suppose this is what I love, actually, because I get to talk about the fun bits about my job. When we're, let's say, the bus splitting in two element, you see that in the script, and straight away I like to think that I'm a problem solver, I'm creative, I've got a fantastic, a really great team of people, from the office to the workshop to the shooting floor. So I see these little sequences and I know straight away that there's probably 3 or 4 ways of doing it. I also know that special effects, who will be responsible for this working on a day, have their own ideas. And it's really lovely when you're working with other heads of department that you can come together and they can say, oh, we're going to do this is how we're going to work it. I think there was early meetings and it was talking about the jumping car. I thought of straight away was the sort of cars you see in the States that are on these huge hydraulics and they're bouncing around. So all that was that on steroids. And that's pretty much what it ended up being. It's just this incredible jumping car, and then you see how it intertwines with the sequence and what makes this jumping car really work and actually bring that whole sequence to life, and all the elements come together. I've not seen a car like that ever. I didn't actually think it was going to work or how it was going to work, but it looked fantastic. Every car is tricky to buy. You know, you've got to deal with an owner first of all, or a dealership. Then you've got to find out where it is, how you get it back. Then you've got import duties, how you get that. Then we've got to register everything. So every car has its own process. It's just, you know, there may only be one of them or a small handful of them, and they're going to be more expensive than the next. With the rocket car that came over, we had a certain amount of work to do on the vehicle, but then because of the role of the car, it was mainly looked after by Alistair and his team with special effects because of the, you know, its cannons, its jumping around and the functionality of the missiles, so that then blends into props. So as a picture vehicle department, we make sure we concentrate more on the drivability, the functionality and the safety of vehicles. I enjoy those scratch builds the most, and I think I've got a few that I've been involved with. One was the World War I tank that we built, which is an Earhart. It's an armoured vehicle. It wasn't a tank, it's an armoured vehicle. It's a German armoured vehicle from Wonder Woman, and she nudges into it and this thing catapults and lands in a building. That was one of the most fun builds because it doesn't exist. You know, there was a photograph of it and I managed to find a schematic of it online that gave us ideas of how big this thing was, so we were able to scale it and build it from scratch. Still probably one of my most exciting builds to achieve. Every movie for me, I have great memories, and I was fortunate to do 2 or 3 of these franchises now, working with Jason Statham. The first time I met Jason was on Hobbs & Shaw, and I'll never forget him test driving the 720S, and he put it into launch mode and he was having so much fun. I enjoyed that. Great guy, enjoyed his cars. Yeah, Justice League was a really exciting film to be involved in because you've got so many superheroes in that world. So Dennis McCarthy built the Batmobile that we had on Justice League. So that was sent over to us. There were some small modifications that needed to be done, but it was a case of just taking care of that. But I do remember one cold early Monday morning having to take it out. We had a secure garage at the studios and we had to take it out and put it on stage, which used to be one of my guys, but there's a big kid inside of me and there's no way that someone else was going to drive the Batmobile for the first time onto the stage, so I had to drive it, obviously. That was hugely exciting, and I think that's, you know, some of these great memories that you go home with and think you'll never forget that. Again, it's kind of, no one knows about us. We're the unknown entity. We're the SAS element, you know. We're quiet little secret department that produces these things. I mean, some of the builds that I've been involved in, had the privilege to be involved in, have been some of the most exciting looking vehicles I've seen on screen. And I grew up, you know, watching The Saint and James Bond, to name, you know, 2. Yeah, always was excited to see what was the next Bond car. And Batman, you know, the Batmobile and all those sort of things. We all had the little toy with the little red pellets that shot out the back. I get really excited about what I do for a living. It's the challenge is incredible, and it's easy to forget what you do for a living sometimes. And when you get to talk about it like this, like I am now, I can let all the secrets out of the bag.